At 1:36 p.m. of the first quarterly meeting of the CTA ADA Advisory Committee. Happy belated New Year to everybody. And remember to please keep on mute to avoid any background noise as we go along. We have a very packed agenda today, so we'll get right into this. And I'm going to turn it over to my vice chair, Michelle Lee, to do roll call. Michelle?
Thanks, Joe. So this is Michelle. Thanks everyone for joining, and we're going to do a quick roll call. So all you have to do is just when you hear your name, say here and or present, and also if you're with any organization, if you wouldn't mind. So first off, Mary Abramson.
I'm here. Happy New Year.
Hi. Any organization?
Just I would say people with visual impairments in Chicago.
At 1:36 p.m. of the
Joe Albritton.
Present, MOPD.
Thank you. Next, we have Adam Ballard.
I am here, and I am representing Access Living for for sure the last time here. I will be getting a new role with AARP at the end of the month.
Oh, thank you. Next, we have Lovell B.
I believe he's working.
So he's absent. Next, we have Pamela Berman. She was here earlier, no? Pamela? No. Okay. Pamela, are you on mute?
Pam, if you press your space bar, you can respond.
I'm so sorry. I didn't realize I was on mute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, yep. Pamela Berman with Guide Dogs for the Blind.
Awesome, thank you. Next up, we have Bridget Heeman.
Hi, everybody. I am here and playing with my mute button, and I'm here from Access Living.
Awesome, thank you. Next, we have Whitney Hill.
Here, and I'm here with Spork Nonprofit and LCM Architects.
Awesome, thank you. Next, Robin Jones.
Hello, I'm here, and it's Robin Jones, Great Lakes ADA Center.
Perfect, thank you. Next, Michael Kaiser. I don't know that he's here. Michael? Nope. Next.
We just got an announcement that he left.
Oh, okay. Next, we have me, Michelle Lee. I'm here. I'm also representing myself, people with disabilities. I use a power wheelchair and use it quite often. Next, Nicholas Robertson. And then next, Howard Wilson.
Wilson, I'm here. I represent myself. I am a blind CTA user.
Thank you. And Amy.
Yes, ADA manager for CTA.
Thank you. And last but not least, Michael Connolly.
Yes, I'm here. Glad to be here this afternoon, and Happy New Year to everybody. I'm the Chief Planning Officer for CTA. So good to have you all here. Thanks for coming into this meeting.
Thanks for being here, Michael. So we have 3 absences: Lovell Bates, Michael Kaiser, and Nicholas Robinson. And we do have 7 people. So 7 people represents a quorum, and we do have that. And moving along, next up, we have the announcements from the chair. So, Joe.
Yes, thank you, Michelle. Does anyone have any announcements to make about any disability-related events or activities that might be coming up, presumably virtually? But I will say, Adam, congratulations on your new role coming up. But any announcements? And if you do have some announcements, please identify yourself when you speak. Thank you.
Hi, this is Robin Jones, and just want to let people know that we just added a special session for February 9th that will feature and focus on the new service animal regulations the Department of Transportation has issued for the airlines. And that session will be from 1 to 2:30 p.m. and registration is available off of our website. So if you're interested in that session, we just added it.
Any more announcements?
If I can, Michael Kaiser has rejoined us. So if you want to just go back and note that he is in attendance here. Michael, you want to just say hello and make sure your microphone works?
Can you hear us, Michael?
Oh, I think we lost him again. Oh, he'll probably read.
Is Michael with us?
I think we lost him again.
Okay.
We can continue on.
Okay. So next, we'll move on with Michelle, if you'll handle the approval of the minutes, please.
All right. So next up, approval of the minutes. This is Michelle. So the meeting minutes were sent to the members prior to the meeting. And does anyone have any changes or corrections to the minute? If not, I'll ask for a motion to approve October 13th.
This is Bridget. I so move.
Bridget. So Bridget Heyman moves. Anyone second?
This is Whitney Hill. I second.
Thanks, Whitney. And we're going to do a quick vote. So all we have to do is everybody in favor, say aye.
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 Any abstentions? And any opposed? Okay. So everybody's in favor and the motion passes. Next up, we have the public comment section.
Yeah, we want to keep public comments to no more than 15 minutes as usual. And as you may be aware, we've changed the way we take public comments, and they're sent to Amy in advance, Amy Serpy in advance. Amy, would you mind just briefly describing how we do those public comments in advance and then letting us know if you've received any?
Sure. At this time, we have no public comment, and anybody wanting to make a public comment at any of the meetings, because of how we're doing this now, would either contact me via email at aserpy@transitchicago.com, or they could call me. And I would either read whatever you wrote into the minutes, or I would simply explain what your comment was. So it's really done sort of through me at this time, as we're doing these virtually. And at this time, we have no public comment for today.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Next, Michelle, if you will take us through the reports, please.
So this is Michelle again. We're going to be first up talking about the customer service report. And today we have Kate Kennelly, who's the general manager of customer service. And prior to the meeting, all of the members were sent out the customer service reports. And we did at a previous meeting discuss not having to repeat all the service statistics. But if anyone has any questions, Kate is here to answer them. But also, Kate, if you would like to let us know about any trends or anything that you notice is like an uptick of customer service, issues, let us know.
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Kate Kennelly, and I'm the acting general manager for customer service. I'll provide just a brief overview since you do have the report. So overall last year, we logged 740 ADA complaints, which is down about 17% from the previous year. So focusing today on the fourth quarter, or the last period, we logged 113 ADA complaints, which is a decrease of approximately 15% from the previous period. The top concern that arose was passengers reporting being passed at the bus stop. That accounted for about 30% of the complaints. This is a little bit of an uptick from last quarter, but overall, I'd say it's pretty similar to what we usually receive in this area. And then their next highest category was reports of discourteous employees with a total of 29. We were down from both the previous quarter, about 28% down, and also from where we were last year. So it is one of our higher categories, but we do see improvement in the fourth quarter.
Great, thank you. It's good to always have improvement, right, guys? Any questions from the members?
Yes, this is Bridget speaking. Hi, Kate. Thank you very much for sending the report in advance. It's really helpful. And I was wondering if, the decline is good to see, but how this relates to the overall decline in ridership, not just among people with disabilities, but in general. And I was wondering if there has been an uptick in the fourth quarter, or because of COVID, if ridership is still down, and if that might explain the trend that we're seeing that there are fewer complaints because there are fewer riders.
I don't have specific ridership data available with me. It typically is pretty usual for complaints to decrease in the fourth quarter, though. Year over year, we're down, pretty significantly from the last year at this time. But it is pretty standard for complaints to decrease in the fourth quarter, and again in the first quarter, and they usually tick up as the weather gets better and as the year progresses.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I would just be curious in the future, like seeing a line of comparison in the report. So like overall ridership and the percentage that we know are folks with disabilities. I think that would give some context for these numbers that would be useful for this committee.
Any other questions from members? All right. Well, thanks so much for being here. We always appreciate, updates.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And then, so next up, we have the elevator escalator efficiencies report that we also, members have been sent out prior to the meeting. And it's going to be a two-part. So first of all, we're going to talk about just like the maintenance part, and then we're going to talk about cleaning. So that's always exciting. So first up, Lenny Romano, who is the General Manager of Facilities and Maintenance. He's going to be talking about just kind of a, overview, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. Good afternoon, committee. This is Lenny Romano, General Manager of Facilities Maintenance, and I'll be talking about the elevator and escalator efficiencies for the fourth quarter. You guys were given the reports. I'll defer to you if you have any questions in regards to our percentages of uptime for both elevator escalator. And I could go into more of the short-term and long-term of our elevator escalators. Any questions? No? Okay. All right, so currently for short terms of our escalators, we currently have 5 of them that are currently in a long-term. Pulaski on the orange line, we have a date of down of 4/21, estimated completion date of March 15th, as well as Lake Randolph, A502E. That one was down on October 18th. We plan to have that escalator back in service in March as well. Logan Square, we have 2 escalators, both K214 and 209. Both of them were down roughly around the same time, November 23rd and November 25th. We have an estimated completion of the escalator K214 for February 11th of 2021, and we currently have a TBD date for the other escalator as we're trying to mitigate the first one prior to putting a date of completion for the second one until we receive materials as well. 95th on the red line, we have an escalator that's currently down there due to damage. We're in the process of receiving our proposals from our vendor. So as soon as we have that, we'll add a date for completion once we have a better time frame of when those material will be received at the CTA. For future heavy maintenance, we're looking at Cumberland on the blue line, Oak Park on the green line, Polk on the pink line, and then Howard on the red line. 3 of them are planned to start within the first quarter of 2021, and Howard will start roughly around second quarter of 2021 as well. In regards to our elevators, our current long-term elevator status is California and 55th on the red. California on the green line and 55th on the red line. We are projected to be completed with California on January 20th and 55th red line. We're looking at a January 22nd completion date. I will add 35th on the green line. This one did not make my list. I inadvertently left that one out. But we have 35th on the green line that's current. We are projected to complete that one January 15th of this week. So we don't have any current heavy maintenance on elevators in the forecast for right now. We're in the midst of putting together our reports based off of 2020's deficiencies. And we'll be putting together a list of about 5 to 6 elevators for heavy maintenance for 2021. And this concludes my report. Be happy to take any questions.
This is Joe. I have a question. Whenever you have an elevator down and an escalator down, can you say there's an average amount of time until they get repaired, or is it really a case-by-case basis based on what the needs are?
So I'll answer that in 2 parts. The first part is we try to get our mechanics or our technicians out on site relatively within that 8-hour day. Elevators generally are addressed within a few hours. Based off the determination of the mechanics or the technicians, that will determine the time frame and the length that the elevator or escalator would be down based off of, again, case by case, what is the needs and the availability of parts and material.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Michelle, quick question. Thanks so much for the report. And also, generally, whenever you have a lot of estimates of when things will be completed, is that information available on the website publicly, do you know, or just so for people who are planning?
So I'm sorry, this is Lenny. Forgot to say my name, but generally the website is updated for estimated completion dates. Once we receive, a good time frame of when we'll be receiving the material, plus, mechanic availability to get out and to make the repairs. So yes, it's updated on the website, and we generally would change those as work continues on the equipment. If the status changes, we try to provide the the most amount of time for customers to know in advance if their elevator status has changed for a completion date.
Perfect, thank you. As a wheelchair user, all the elevators are super important, so
yes.
Thanks for all the work you do. Any other questions from the members? Otherwise, thank you so much. Next person we have is Richard Hastings, and he's one of the general managers of the rail station management. He's going to be talking about elevator cleaning schedules, which is also super important for people who use wheelchairs like this. Richard.
Hi, this is Erin Kleis-Gaynor. I'm going to be taking Rich's place this afternoon. So I apologize for the last minute change. So we do get an opportunity to deep clean the elevators a minimum of twice a day. So once on the AM shift and once on the PM shift. In between that, we are wiping down all of the buttons and the handrails within the elevators and on the escalators, actually, at least 3 to 4 times per shift. We also do half-hour inspections of the elevators during AM and PM rush, which would be between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m., and between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. And then, as always, if any issues are noticed by either customers or by CTA staff, we adjust them with manpower as soon as possible.
Awesome, that's great. Any questions from the members?
1,153. Richard closest to the smile. Actions available. Yes, this is Whitney Hill. Thank you so much for reporting on that. I was wondering what type of, do you list anywhere the type of chemicals that you use for your deep cleanings?
We do. I believe all of the CTA chemicals are listed on the CTA's website under the COVID cleaning. So I believe that the chemicals are listed there. If not, I'd be more than happy to provide you with a list, but they're all on the CDC's recommended list of appropriate cleaning chemicals.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oops, sorry, I was on mute. This is Michelle. Any other questions?
55 p.m. 1000.
All right, if not, thank you so much for your report. We really appreciate it. Sorry for the mix up in the names. I didn't know about Richard not being here. So.
55 p.m. 1000.
Not a problem.
Next up, we have the Red Purple Modernization Project update. And Jeff Wilson is going to be presenting, and he's the Director of Community Relations. Take it from here, Jeff.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Wilson. I'm the Director of Government Community Relations for the CTA RPM team. Happy New Year, everybody. I'm glad to be here to talk to you about the advancement of the Red Purple Modernization Project. As I've discussed in the past with the group, the project area is located both in the Red Purple bypass area, which is approximately from Belmont north to just south of Addison, which provides us with building a bridge that will create, basically separates the brown, red, and purple traffic from each other. So right now in that bypass area, we have sidewalk impacts to Roscoe and Sheffield. And we are working closely with the 44th Ward Alderman's office and with Amy Serpy on this call to make sure that everybody is aware of the impacts and to make sure that the contractor, Walsh Floor, is providing accessibility for either the south side of the street or the north side of the street, along with signage and wayfinding for the community. And then in the other project area, which is known as the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr Modernization Area, LBMM, we're about to begin our Stage A project, which effectively is closing down basically all four of the stations, Lawrence, Argyle, Berwyn, and Bryn Mawr. However, two of the stations, Bryn Mawr and Argyle, will have a temporary station. Those two temporary stations are being built right now as part of the Stage A process. And we are working with the 48th Ward Alderman, Harry Osterman, and the 46th Ward Alderman, James Kappelman, to make sure that accessibility is maintained as much as possible throughout the construction site, and that the community is made aware of any of the changes that are made prior to the actual construction taking place. Most of the impacts in February and March are going to be sidewalk and alley closures. And again, the contractor will make sure that there is accessibility either on the north, south side, or east or west side of the streets that are impacted. And I'll make sure that Amy Serpy has a full list of all those impacts prior to the construction. One of the big changes that will happen that affects the accessibility community will be that the Bryn Mawr station will have the escalator removed while they build the new station. Unfortunately, the temporary station will not have accessibility. However, the goal of rebuilding all of these stations and making the entire CTA accessible is one of the top priorities of both President Carter as well as the Chief RPM Officer, Chris Buchel. So accessibility is very important to the team. So that's it for this quarter. I look forward to talking to the same group next time. If there's any questions or concerns, let me know.
Yeah, this is Joe. I have a couple of questions.
Hey, Joe.
About Hi.
Sure.
I have a couple of questions about the temporary stations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Number one, how long do you foresee them being operable?
So
like how
the temporary stations?
Yes, temporary stations.
Yes, so the schedule right now shows us working on the temporary stations until 2023. But what I want to do is come back to the group with exact dates so that we have a more complete report to provide the group.
Okay, and you said that those won't be accessible?
The temporary stations are not accessible, unfortunately, no. The current station isn't accessible, And so nor the whole reason, one of the reasons why we're building these new stations is that to make them fully accessible. The big problem we have with the stations themselves right now is there's no room to build escalators and elevators. And that's one of the reasons why we had to close down Lawrence and Berwyn in order to do the full station renewal there, because in order to build the accessibility components like escalators and elevators, we needed to open up more space. We were lucky with Bryn Mawr and Argyle because there was a little more space for us to maintain access to the stations themselves and provide service. But in order to build the accessibility components, like I said, the escalator and elevators, they need room. And so that's why the temp stations do not have the accessibility, but the new stations that we're going to be opening will have full accessibility.
Jeff, this is Amy.
Amy.
I want a little.
Amy.
Okay. I want a little clarification for the group. Just because there's not going to be vertical accessibility, there will be lighting, correct? Appropriate.
That's correct.
And
I'm sorry, Amy, you've told me in the past to clarify the accessibility components.
Okay. And
that's my bad.
What about the tactile warning strips? Is there going to be some tactile warning?
You know what I'm going to do, actually, because I know about the vertical accessibility components. So what I'll do is I'll come back to I'll send you the list of all the accessibility components that are being associated with the temp station, and I'll submit that list to the group. Is that okay?
Yeah, that'd be good. So then at least people
I apologize. I should have had that list for this meeting, and that's my bad.
I'll send it out. Thank you.
Joe, are you still there?
Yes.
Joe, you had another question, and I'm sorry if I missed it.
Oh, it was just those two about how long.
Oh, I'm sorry.
How long they'll be in place and the accessibility of them. That's all. Thank you.
Great. So Joe, is that okay what I told Amy with regards to the list of what components are going to be made a part of the accessibility stations?
Oh yeah, so we can get the word out to the community. Sure.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Jeff.
Are there any other questions with regards to the red purple modernization project? Well, thank you, everybody. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thanks, Jeff. And I wanted to say I like the background. That's pretty cool.
Oh, thank you.
So appreciate you being
I wish I could say I did it myself.
very on brand. So appreciate you.
Thank you, everybody.
Look forward to having you at the Thank you.
I appreciate that.
And next up, we have the general construction report. This is Michelle, by the way. And we're going to talk about infrastructure maintenance update, etc. And we have Tanisha Marshall. She's the Vice President of Capital and Construction.
Happy New Year, everyone. As Michelle introduced me, Tanisha Marshall, Vice President of Capital Construction. So I want to provide you updates with our phase one. As we know, in phase one, 4 of the ASAP locations are under the RPM. The other 4 will be in our construction infrastructure group. I'm happy to announce that we also have a bonus ASAP program, which is the Racine Station. So to provide you updates with the 5 capital constructions, we have the State and Lake. The State and Lake is a CDOT project, but we have been working in close coordination with them as they design this right now. They are moving from 15% design into 30% conceptual design. The design will go on for all of 2021 with a construction start of spring of 2022. This location will be adding 8 new elevators, and it's also one of our highest ridership locations. So we look forward to working with CDOT on that project. Our next one is the Austin Green Line. We have just secured a general engineering consulting contractor consultant. They will get their NTP this month, and they will be designing that location, adding a new elevator. Also coordination with CDOT because we will be changing. Currently we have some stairs there, so it is not ADA accessible, but we'll be adding new ramp, new curb cuts, and also wider sidewalks so that you will be able to access the station and also the elevator. That design will go on all of this year until early next year with a construction start date of spring of 2022. Our bonus ASAP location is our Racine. We'll be implementing our Congress Station project. With that, Racine will we'll start design spring of 2021, and it will continue till spring of 2022 with a construction start of early 2023. At this Racine station, we will reconstruct we will add a new elevator, also reconstruct the stairs that are there, and also platform extension. Then we have two other locations along the blue line. The design, it's in the planning phase right now. Design will not start until spring of 2022, with construction starting in spring of 2023. That is the California and Montrose. We'll be doing station renovation, updating of lighting, platform improvements, signage, and wayfinding. So that is the update for our phase one. Everybody is aware that the ASAP program is a 20-year endeavor. So I'm happy that we're rolling out our phase one.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Any questions from the members? This is Michelle.
Hey, Tanisha, this is Joe. I just have a question out of curiosity. I guess because I work with a city department. At the State Lake station, how does CDOT get involved? You were mentioning that I guess they're taking the lead on. How does that come? Like, why are they doing that? How does that work?
Mr. Mooney, are you on the call? Bill? He must be muted right now. But that is one of the ones that was spearheaded by CDOT, so it's just a coordination with CTA.
Tanisha, Bill Mooney, Chief Infrastructure Officer. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
So we have a long-standing historical relationship with the Chicago Department of Transportation on the legacy structures that are in the downtown area, the great majority of which are actually assets owned by the city of Chicago that the CTA has the right to operate and maintain. As part of the city's contributions to the CTA, they seek capital funding through the federal government or alternative means to support reconstruction of a great majority of the downtown stations, kind of a vision plan that they've been doing. So they've upgraded a bunch of the subway stations on our behalf, as well as Washington Wabash, which was recently done by CDOT. And their next project is State and Lake. It's just kind of part of the longstanding City of Chicago collaborative relationship.
Great, thank you. That explains it quite well.
And CDOT is the arm that builds these things for the City of Chicago.
Great, thank you.
This is Michelle. Any other questions? If not, thank you so much, Tanisha. We always appreciate the updates to the ASAP report. As you know, it's a kind of a longer term thing, but you know, we appreciate all the updates. Thank you.
A step at a time. Thank you, Michelle.
Thanks. And next up, guys, we have the rail station signage topic to discuss, and we are having Victor Ramirez. He's the coordinator of graphics production, and he's going to talk about signage. Take it away.
Hi, I'm Victor Ramirez. Actually, I'm manager as of this morning. So.
Oh, hey, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to also congratulate Victor. This is Tony Capoletta, General Manager of Customer Information, who Victor's group is a part of, and I'm also here in the meeting. But I'm gonna let Victor handle this part. Take it away, Victor.
Okay, so I have a little slideshow that basically shows all the signs that we did during COVID. Let me see if I could get this to work. I'm going to share a PowerPoint.
And just a little bit of a reminder, this is Amy. If you could explain pictures as you go along for those that are unable to see.
Okay. All right, system signage. As part of our ongoing efforts to encourage everyone to continue practicing coronavirus safety measures, we've placed new circular floor decals at some of the stations urging social distancing. We've also expanded signage at stations urging the use of masks when taking public transit. The new decals, which feature the message, "Be safe, make a space," in both English and Spanish, are evenly spaced along platforms. The decals have also been placed throughout the station houses near the Ventra vending machines and also near the elevators. The following are examples of promoting social distancing at CTA rail stations with the new signage. So at the entrances to all our stations, you're going to find a poster 18 by 24 inches that basically will reiterate, please wear a mask or face covering. It's also going to tell you to try to spread out on the platform, try to keep 6 feet distance. And then also when you're inside the rail car, if the rail car is crowded, to move to the next car. So now here's some technical specs that I could send this PowerPoint later on. Basically, we tried to make the fonts large enough so anybody could read it. It's an 18 by 24 print. And we get close to an inch for the headers, like please wear a face mask, spread out, and move down through the car if crowded. So again, these decals are located at the entrances to all the stations. And when you get up to the platform, you'll see them one more time before you embark to walk to a train. Next are the Ventra floor graphic decals. These are spaced in front of the Ventra machines to enable a queue or a line. Also to try to tell people, try to stay 6 feet apart while waiting in line to recharge your cards or purchase a fare card. They're almost 11-inch round decals that are on the ground. They are printed with this new material called Street Tracks, made by MacTac, which basically has an aggregate texture on it, so you could feel the difference. It's anti-skid, anti-slip, and we were always concerned about having anybody slip on any of our decals in our station. So these are installed in front of the Ventra machines. All the elevators will have a elevator capacity decal, basically telling you no more than X amount of people. I think everything is two people per car, except for State of Illinois Center, which I think is 4. We also have these little footprint graphics on the ground that basically try to coerce you to stand away. So it's trying to get at least the 6 feet inside the elevator cab. And just, again, it's an 8.5 by 11 decal. We got 1/2-inch high Helvetica. And again, these are all installed next to the elevator controls to allow people to know how many people or how many passengers can fit in the elevator. The little footprint decal, please wear also, the keep rights are used in the Jackson Headway Tunnel. I'm not sure where else we installed them, but they're basically just decals reiterating which way to go in and which way to go out, kind of like what you've seen at supermarkets and stuff right now, going down certain aisles. Yeah, Each of the stickers are 6 inches by 24 inches with 2-inch high Helvetica. And the smaller ones are almost at 1-inch high Helvetica for the keep rights. Decals. This we worked with facilities maintenance. They installed hand sanitizing stations at particular high capacity stations. We designed all the decals. So the decals are basically placed right above the sanitizing system, 12 by 18 inches. Let me see. And there's 2 types of hand sanitizing machines currently installed now at stations. Digital screens, they're regurgitating basically the same messages on please practice social distancing, please wear a mask. And I think that's it. That's a shot of our area when we're printing decals upstairs on the 8th floor and how many decals we produced just for this project. And that's it. If you have any questions, let me know.
This is Mary Abramson. I have a question about your sandwich board signs.
Yes.
So could you explain again where those are? Because if you're talking about those little pedestals that sit on the floor and then have a large sign attached to the top of it, those are, okay, go ahead.
These are A-frame. This is Victor, by the way. These are A-frame signs. They're about 2 feet by 3 feet. And they're plastic, and they could be moved at any time by staff, you know, in the event of a high capacity of people entering and exiting the turnstiles.
Are they like those little wet floor signs that sit on the floor?
They're bigger than that, yeah, but it's the same. It's the same, but these are 2 feet by 3 feet.
The reason why I'm asking is those are really difficult for people who are totally blind. I mean, if you have a dog, obviously they can guide you around them, but for someone like me with a cane, if my cane misses that narrow little frame that they sit on, then I'm going to run into the thing and become injured maybe. At the very least, maybe knock the thing over. I have a lot of trouble with them, like at the train stations and that, not just CTA, but you know, the suburban train stations.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to put them in a place where sighted people can see them, but not be directly in the walkway of someone that can't see them at all, that would trip over them or hit them? And I'm very short, so you know, if it's a sign that's going to be at base level, I usually run right into it, and I've cut my face open with those things. So I would just urge you to please be careful about where you position those things.
Hi, Mary. Tony Capoletta, the General Manager of Customer Info. Just to be really clear on what these specific ones are, which tend to be placed in prominent locations in unpaid areas, but you know, we do try to make sure that they're not in a precarious spot or one that necessarily like obstructs passenger flow. These are really solid, heavy plastic boards. They don't have any sharp edges. They're 3 feet tall off the ground about, and a little over 2 feet wide. And they're not the type of sign that is on a pole or a rod, or that has like a floating element with sharp corners that might be something that you've experienced in some other places and sounds like what you might be referring to here.
Okay, that'd be good. And if I knock one over, does anything really awful bad happen? You know?
No.
Are you going to sue me?
No.
Well, hopefully that is never the case for you. We definitely don't want you to have that experience. But no, they're really durable plastic things. They're
okay.
Yeah.
So I can't break it. I'm not going to break it, right? If it falls on me. Okay.
Not at all.
Oh, that sounds good. Thank you.
Well, but we do wish to avoid that sort of interaction, of course.
This is Joe. I have a question about the floor decals, and you may have touched on this, but do they have any type of maybe small lip or some kind of raised part where if you're if you're using a cane or you have a visual impairment and you're walking, that you can determine where it's at, because as you know, they can get a lot of wear and tear just in general with a lot of use, and it kind of flattens out.
Right. This is Victor. The first set we did, they had no texture on them. The professional ones that we had made for the platform edges all have a clear aggregate, kind of like, think like you're pouring sand on a plate, and that type of texture. So you should be able to feel the roughness with the cane, or even with just your foot when you rub against it. Especially on the concrete, you'll go from smooth to this rough surface.
Right. Yeah, I'll add to that. Tony Capoletta again. But yeah, there is a textural difference in these, but they are simple decals that are easy to install and shouldn't present any tripping hazard, and are just, you know, very, very flat. But they do have a textural difference, and the design of them, both the ones by vending machines, which are a bright blue color, and then the ones on the platforms that are more specific about spacing with the bright orange color, both were selected to try and create as much contrast between the platform, the various different surfaces that we have, which of course are varied in any location, and also have a white ring around them to add contrast in case the specific flooring in a location might be one that, you know, the blue or the orange doesn't seem all that different from. So we've done a number of things to try and make them a little bit more obvious to the extent that we can for people who are sighted, even you know, with limited vision. But also there is just a textural difference in the material than what you'd find on the rest of the platform because of that non-slip surfacing.
Okay, thanks, Tony and Victor.
You're welcome.
Hey, Joe, Tony, Bill Mooney, Chief Infrastructure Officer again. Joe, I would just add that we're planning on doing a full system kind of replacement post-winter too. Recognizing that, you know, with the weathering over the season, especially in the outdoor stations, there'll be some wear with them. So Tony and Victor have bought enough for us to come out with maintenance and do kind of a full replacement plan.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Also, this is Amy and Mary. I just wanted to say, or anybody, if you experience any difficulty with any of the placement of like the bigger signs or whatever, please let me know, because then I will make sure to get to that team and let them know more specifically where, if we have any issues. But actually, Tony is really well aware, and so is Victor, of how to place those things. And so we do take into consideration that not everybody can see, and some people have mobility devices and other things that they use for travel. So, but let me know. I'm happy to sort of be the go-between.
Awesome.
Hi, this is Whitney. So I'm over the wayfinding subcommittee, and I just have a couple of questions about the decals. In fact, a presentation I'm going to be going over towards the end, one of our recommendations was floor decals. So I just have a question. You mentioned that for the hand sanitizing stations, there were 2 different types of decals that were used for the stations. And I was wondering if that was correlated because the hand sanitizing pumps were used differently or a different model. I was wondering kind of like how those worked out.
This is Victor. There were 2 different sizes, 2 different models.
2 different models.
So we had 2 different types of decals made with Tony.
Yeah, and the pumping mechanism is different. So each one is very specific to how you use the different devices.
And do you know at all if that information about the 2 different hand sanitizing pumping stations, if that is information on CTA's website anywhere?
Hey, Victor, hey, it's Molly Poppy. Hey, Whitney. So we do have the locations listed on the CTA website of those hand sanitizer stations. And one of the things that I know we talked about at the last advisory committee meeting that we are discussing internally is providing more description about where they are. So not just saying they're in the unpaid area, of the 95th Street station, being more clear that it's on the east wall, and providing a little bit more direction. So we are having those conversations internally, because I do know that was a recommendation that we had discussed last committee meeting.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for answering that. I was also wondering, for the stations that are a little bit more narrow, where there might just be a lot of foot traffic going by and it's really close to the edge of the station where the trains are coming. I mean, I was wondering if there's any confusion with all the decals, if you notice that being an issue just with the wayfinding.
I think since this is Victor, since we've had less ridership right now, it hasn't been an issue. I just, when it comes to full force, it may become an issue. I know we are using the keep right decals on the the underground tunnel transfer at Jackson. I know for sure we're using them there. And that's the only place that I know that we just wanted to make sure that there was a flow of left and rights going through. But I haven't seen any issues or complaints from us, from the platform edge.
Thank you. And then I'm sorry, my last question is, are there any audio components, like with the screen that you talked about, that shows the graphics?
Tony,
those digital screens, Tony Cappelletta here. I've in the past handled a lot of the digital sort of messaging on those. Those screens themselves don't have a built-in audio component, but similar messaging is shared over the audio PA system on some pre-recorded announcements that encourage the core messaging, which of course is to, wear a mask at all times while on the system, keep a distance, let crowded trains pass, or use a different car if one approaches. So there is an audio component in that sense.
And do you know if that PA system runs in the station as well as inside of the train cars?
It's not the same one, but there are similar messages on both the platforms and inside all vehicles.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That was my last question. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Absolutely. You're welcome.
Any other questions? If not, thank you so much, Victor, for all your hard work with all the signage. I know it's a lot, but you got to keep everyone on their toes, literally, and make sure everybody's in where they need to be. So we appreciate it. And congratulations again for being a manager, being promoted. So awesome.
Thank you, Tony, for that. So.
Yes. And so next up, we have the navigation of the CTA's website, which is super important. And Tony Cappelletta, he's the General Manager of Customer Information, here to talk about our next topic. Thanks, Tony.
Hi again. Thanks for having me. Amy's explained to me that there was some interest in getting a bit of an overview of some of the stuff that's on our website and maybe talking a little bit about how people can get late breaking information about things that might affect them along the way. Before I go into it, because I can kind of, improvise what I walk you through, I'm curious if there's anything specifically that you'd like me to focus on as I go forward.
This is Michelle. So just maybe personally for me, a knowing before you go kind of thing, because for me, a lot of like hesitancy is just, I don't know what to expect, especially in the ever-changing COVID era. And just like to make sure to know, specifically where to go, but also in terms of like for accessibility and stuff like that. And, just because not everybody knows how to ride the CTA if you're new or something like that. What to expect, I guess, is what I would like to be able to find easily.
Sure. So I'll start with just going quickly over some of the key layout and navigation of the website. I'll also go over where we talk about base system components and features and things that are designed for people with disabilities. And so how we talk about accessibility a little bit, and then the general kind of how-tos around the system and where that information is. I won't get too in the weeds on it because it's actually, there's a huge amount of information in this area. But then also, what I should probably say just right off the bat is that one of the things in my previous role as the manager of external electronic communications, which I'm still filling in for at this time, has always been in recognizing that, first and foremost, people come and visit our website because they need information about how to use our services. They're wishing to connect with it. More likely than not, it's probably not to check up on a familiar trip, but look for information about something that people are unfamiliar with. And also that, we can't presume that people every single time they come to our website, every time they go to ride transit, because a lot of people just use the same path every day, aren't going out of their way to check the website and see if something's different. It's just really hard to get people to necessarily choose to do that. And while we make sure that our website is one that has whatever information you might be looking for, we want to make sure that it's useful both for those who are visiting it, but then also provide features for people who want to engage with us in different ways. And so we've taken kind of a kitchen sink approach to how it is that we share late-breaking information. So if you're a person who likes to just check the web on your phone or on a desktop, you can get it. Or if you'd rather something come to you when you need to know it rather than going out of your way, which I think is a little bit more likely these days for how people engage with technology, that we offer those options to you as well. And that's where our CTA updates service comes in. And by the way, to the interpreter, please let me know if I'm speaking too quickly or anybody else. I know I'm trying to give a lot of information all at once. Okay. So I'm going to start a screen share and I'll just get right into it. Just making sure I'm selecting the correct window here. All right, can you see our web page in a web browser and hear me still? Anyone?
This is Mariah. Yes, we can see it and we can still hear you.
Okay, great. All right, so this is the homepage of our website. It was redesigned about 3 years ago, maybe launched 2.5 years ago, to be a more modern and responsive website than our old one. We did a lot of things to maintain some of the old constructs that we had and have some familiar cues and ways of finding things so people didn't have to relearn everything. But the website starts first and foremost with a little bar at the top. Accessibility, as with our old website, is the first link on every page. And this is what gets you very quickly to a section that tells you about the sort of static accessibility features of the system, the permanent features. There's also a contact link and a search link, so you can very quickly get to that information. We feel that putting these things up top also helps people with visual disabilities have to sort of get through less of the page to get to the information that they're looking for. It is designed around being an accessible website with keyboard navigation. Most people who visit it probably never try this, but if you start tabbing through the website, you'll actually see the links get highlighted and even additional instructions that tell you how to use the keyboard to navigate menus, for example, which would help somebody who uses assistive software when visiting our website. But I will get out of those bits right there and just focus on using my mouse to navigate right now. The main sections of the site are Plan a Trip, which takes you straight to the trip planner. We also put a trip planner widget on the homepage, so you can go straight to trip planning. And then Travel Info is where you're probably going to find a lot of the information that you need when you're riding. So let me go into the accessibility section, which you can get to from the top of the page. It's also linked to inside the site navigation. We try to make it easy to find this, and the search feature should get you there as well. This explains what's on this page and what it's for. Talks a little bit about how much of the system is accessible. It talks about the ASAP program, the All Stations Accessibility Program, and then has information on how to reach us if you have a question or concern. It has information on how to sign up for alerts, which I'll get into in a little bit, and has detailed information about various things that would be of interest to people in the community of those with disabilities. Including, a big button to link to elevator alerts and to sign up for emails, which again, we'll get into in just a moment. I'm going to go back to the home page though. You'll see it on the right side of this page. There's quick links to probably the most key travel information sections that include schedules, fares, maps, alerts, trackers, and getting to the Ventura website to manage your fares. And then also most pages on the site have this system status snapshot. And this is where you'll see if there's an alert that affects all routes. You'll see if there's anything affecting service on any L route. And that would include delays, disruptions, planned work. If there's a change that we're making to how service operates, even notes about station entrances, which we put in the general section of information about routes, because that affects all riders, not just those with disabilities. But I want to make sure that everyone here understands that that's an important thing to look at too. And then there's a section that shows any bus routes that have active alerts on them, meaning currently a reroute or some change to service that you might like to know about. And that could be whether a bus is running down a different street, or if we've moved some stops around due to construction, or if we've extended hours or something like that. And then the last part of the system status widget is the elevator alerts. And this will always show you a list of any station on any line that has an alert that is currently active saying there is an elevator unavailable at one of these stations. So this here is meant to be a very quick glance kind of way that you can find on most pages, including the homepage of the website, to just quickly see, if you're traveling from Armitage on the Brown line to say 47th on the Green line, you can just really quickly skim this and see, are either of those affected by anything right now? And that gets updated at least hourly, but often much more frequently by our control center as that information comes in, and should match what you hear on the elevator status hotline if you dial that number, or look in other places on our website that show this. So I'm going to go back to the homepage and show you where that is. On the homepage, that section is directly below the left side where the quick trip planner is and the quick links. And then you can also get that summary if you just click the alerts button. There's a bigger version that shows on a desktop web browser that has all that same information spanned out a little bit more widely. Then you can see the elevator status with even a little bit more detail, or if there's multiple. I'll also show you the phone version, which automatically collapses into a single narrow column. And this, if you just open Transit Chicago on your phone, you could scroll down and see if there's anything affecting rail lines, what bus routes have reroutes or other changes, and then again, quick status of the elevators. This is a little harder to see in a Zoom call, so I'm going to stay away from this version. I just wanted to show you how much parity we keep between the two different views. So whether you're looking at it on your phone or you're looking at it on a desktop browser, everyone gets to have the same experience now. That didn't used to be the case with older websites. Now, for elevator alerts, just to give a little more detail on that, in that little section on the system status box, you could click the word current to see all current elevator alerts. And then you'll actually get a full list with complete details about which elevators are affected, as of course, many stations have more than one. And we try to use intuitive, natural language to describe them so it can be understood by people not who are just familiar with specific stations, but who are unfamiliar. And so we describe not like how we internally call the elevator something, but we use language that can be understood for who it affects. And so you can see that here, for example, at Paulina, it's the loop-bound platform elevator, rather than saying inbound or southbound, which some people might not understand, particularly if they're new to riding the system. Another place that you can find out about what's happening on your line, let's say you ride the Brown line and only the Brown line, from the system status box, or if you go to our schedules section, you can jump straight to a page that shows you information about the Brown line. And that page will also include a list of any alerts that are currently affecting service. Right now, there's only one, and it is an accessibility alert. It's about that elevator. But if there were a service change that's effective at this time, that would show here too. You can also, from that page, click on any station and learn more about it. So if I click Belmont, I can see the address of the station. I can see that it's and I can see that there's bike parking available. Bus routes, the transfer there, any service alerts affecting lines that run through the station, including elevator alerts elsewhere on the line. Upcoming alerts, like this weekend's work on click on any station, red purple modernization, Belmont bypass. and then even arrival times at the station. So the website does a lot, and we kind of, again, try to make sure that anything that you're looking for is going to be available. Now back to that question of alerts. And so this is where we want to make it easier for you to not have to visit us to learn of something that might affect your trip. From the home page, or even in the footer at the bottom of any page, you'll see a link to sign up to get updates. You can also actually type the word subscribe into the search box and it'll give you a search entry for this. But we have this service called CTA Updates that sends texts and email messages to anyone who signs up to get information about elevators that go up and down throughout the day. You can select, for elevators, you just get them throughout the week. And again, it's by email or text, whatever your preference is. And then for different routes that you ride, you can sign up specifically for routes that you ride during the times of the week when you ride, so you don't get flooded with information that's not necessarily relevant to when you're riding. But you can find out about a red line delay. You'll get a text message when it starts. You'll get a text message when it ends. Same thing with elevators by signing up. So I think those are the key things that based on what we just talked about, I should go over. Obviously, I don't want to turn this into a 3-hour demo and take over the committee meeting, but I'd like to ask if there are any questions at this time or anything else that I can get into a little more deeply for you.
This is Mike Kaiser, and I'm hoping you can hear me now. I've been listening to the whole meeting, but on the telephone. I'm curious if you have any data or capability collecting data about the extent to which the website's used and which things are used most, which pieces of information used most. It's incredibly useful and helpful and has an unbelievable, really, amount of information. But I'm curious about how much people are actually utilizing it.
You know, I do actually get that data and I look at it on a fairly regular basis. But off the top of my head, I couldn't give you numbers. They are impressive. Lots and lots of people visit our website on a daily basis. The most popular things are certainly Train Tracker, because that's live information. And then if there is a disruption, the alert section tends to jump. But you know, one of the reasons why we have this CTA update service and why we consider it such an important tool in our toolkit is knowing that people don't really necessarily check the alerts pages on a daily basis. We do see during normal times, not pandemic times, that pages like information about the O'Hare station or the Blue Line tend to be very high on the list of what people look up. And that, of course, is because these are gateway places to riders who are unfamiliar with the system. So kind of as you'd expect, but it is something that we look at and we make sure that we're putting a good amount of focus on those things that are of greatest public interest. But then also, for things that we feel are important, do use that data to try and see if maybe there's something that we can help the station or that people are aware of. Because, those of us who build these things know how rich the information is inside it and how much of that is available. But, also do need to focus on making sure that people know how to find it and know it's there as well.
Thank you.
Hi, Tony, this is Amy. Could you provide, like if people want to look you up or look up info on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube, are there specific addresses that they need to use? Because I know there's a lot that goes on those social media sites sometimes. So
if you search for, and yeah, we do use those channels to promote upcoming work, make sure people are aware of them in spaces that people are looking for stuff. Their service alerts go out on Twitter, Facebook to a lesser extent. Both of those are not always the best platforms for these things in the sense that they, by default, sort of filter and sort and rise up or bury things that are getting traction. So it isn't always chronological like the update service, and that's why I focus a lot on trying to drive people there, because you don't want to have something show up in your feed that says, "Hey, the red line is disrupted," but never learn that it's gotten back to normal, which sometimes happens with how that automatic algorithmic filtering happens in social media. But if you scroll down to the bottom of basically any page on the website, you'll see this rich, robust footer with direct links to information for job seekers or people with disabilities, how to sign up for service updates. But there's also quick links right at the bottom with big bright buttons that link to the different social media channels where we're present, so you can find us there. And even if you don't find those as useful, we encourage you to follow us there, because you'll learn about things that are going on. You'll see construction photos. If you follow us on Instagram, hopefully you'll see some of just the beauty of the system through the media that we try to share, because we love this stuff and like to share it as well.
Hey, Tony, this is Joe. Does the website itself follow web accessibility standards?
Yeah. We ask our vendor who actually does the development work to not only follow the IITAA, the Illinois Information Technology Accessibility Act, and the federal guidelines for website accessibility, but also to follow the WCAG 2.0 to every extent possible in the design of the site, to make sure that we're keeping up with current web standards and browsers and what those things can do as well as we can. And then go back and periodically revisit to see what's changed, to see if there's something new we can be doing to make the site even more accessible.
Yeah, that's great, because what triggered that was when you mentioned construction photos, having a description of those photos, something like that.
Yeah, we're careful on social media to make sure that the captions, if not using alt tags, which is something that is a newer feature available on some platforms, when it comes to Twitter photos and that sort of thing, are expressive and make sure that it's understood what is being shared.
This is Bridget Heyman speaking. Hi, thank you very much for your report. Very interesting and helpful. I actually work at Access Living, and knowing that you'd be presenting, ran the website through some accessibility testing and was really happy to see that on most pages you're meeting a AA standard for WCAG. I did notice some contrast areas that are consistent on pages throughout the site, and they would be really easy to fix. I would ask your web developer to take a look at that. Maybe another recommendation, I wasn't able to find an actual accessibility statement on your website saying that, you're attempting to meet the standard, and you realize that it's not always perfect. And I've seen that as something that is becoming more standard on a lot of websites, actually explaining the type of accessibility that you have available and what it is that you do, so that you do your best to alt tag images, to caption videos, things like that. So that might be something to add to your accessibility page.
Sure, I'm going to make a note of that. I actually feel like I've written something like that, and it may have been in the welcome information about our website when we first launched it. Yeah. But if that isn't repeated into our accessible transit section, that is something that I think would be a really nice thing to.
It could be like under the using this website part. I just thought maybe you could put a little more detail about what the accessibility is. Sure. And what you're attempting to do, and then if people find like errors or something, if there's a way that they could reach out to you. Yeah. I know folks that use assistive technology are much more likely to come across something. And of course, it's not going to be perfect. But on our Access Living site, we did that, and we've gotten some really great feedback on things that have been pretty easy to fix.
Excellent. I love the suggestion, and yeah, I'll look into that. Just trying to scribble some notes right now. Yeah, I have some limited experience as a person who is sighted and doesn't have any visual disability with screen readers. My mother is actually legally blind and uses screen readers, and so sometimes I'll send stuff to her and say, "Can you check this out?" And
yeah, sure.
I know everybody's everybody's situation is unique, and people experience these things in different ways. But no, that's really fantastic feedback, and I'm glad that your independent checking also showed overall good stuff. I would love it if you could also just send what you found about contrast.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you need to pass back to me, and also, if you go to the contact link and send and choose to send feedback about the website, which anyone can do by email, that information gets to us as well. So you can just pick concerns about our website and then
Yeah, actually, I can tell you right now, it's something standard on every page. So it's for your AA rating, and it's the gray box that's along the right-hand side. It doesn't provide enough contrast. So you're getting on each page like 38 contrast errors, and you could actually fix that very easily by simply changing the contrast on that box.
Okay. Yeah, that's meant to be sort of an accent to slightly separate it, but I could see why that would be why the automated system might read that. So yeah, we'll take a look at that and see if there's something that we can do to make them
right. And like I said, these aren't like huge errors, but you're so close to being a little more perfect that it might be worth like just looking at that gradient, right? I think it might make it pop a little bit more, and as a result, make it more accessible. So something to consider. And just reminding folks, you know, Cite Improve is something that you can run for free through a Google Chrome plugin. And it's a really good way when you're creating new content to simply test it for errors like that and make quick fixes. We use it all of the time and find it really functional.
Okay. Well, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's very accessible. It's nicely done. So thank you for that.
Thank you. It feels good to hear that. It is something that we do really care about.
That's obvious in going through the site. So thank you.
Thank you.
This is Whitney Hill. Thank you so much for the presentation. I just had a quick question. With keeping in line with you guys are taking to heart the standards for the overall website accessibility, I was wondering if you also do any user testing. So getting in different people with different lived experiences and, you know, disabilities, and having them naturally just kind of go through the site as they normally would. I was curious if you do any.
It's not something that we do on a regular basis, but in major redesigns in the past, we have tried to get people to contribute in such a way, and unfortunately sometimes find that it's really kind of hard to know where to reach out. But speaking to you all right now,
to us,
I think
committee.
Obviously you are folks that we can talk to a little bit more. I would love, I mean, if any of you want or know people who would like to just take a look and send us feedback and you know, like give us any information that would be helpful, please do. That's always welcome. But maybe after this we can talk offline about maybe something a little bit more structured in the review as well.
I would really like that. I know that the wayfinding subcommittee members have talked about wanting to be able to step in and be user testers for the technology side and for just the general wayfinding of the stations. And in fact, in the presentation, some ideas kind of came up around, you know, how we could be a little bit more impactful by actually using our experience as helping kind of guide some of the best practices a little bit.
Right, and those experiences are obviously going to be just, you know, incredibly valuable. As much as I try, you know, to do due diligence, like my experiences obviously are not the same, and thus that is really important feedback to me.
Thank you.
Yeah, you've got a great group of user testers. This is Bridget speaking, just to piggyback on what Whitney was saying. And we can always help connect you to more. In fact, this is something that we've been doing in an intentional way at Access Living. So let's definitely talk more. I think we can find you user testers.
Thanks.
All right, so any more questions from the members? I do have one final question for you, Tony. So thank you so much for your presentation. A lot of great information on the website, some that I wasn't even aware of. So that was a learning for me. But for me, like, I know a lot of people with disabilities are a little bit hesitant to you know, ride the CTA if they've never ridden it before. Are there any like videos or anything like kind of, you know, just to like give people an overview of what to expect? Because I know that the RTA does training for people with disabilities to kind of like walk you through riding, but I don't know how that is working now in the pandemic era, you know, with meeting people in person. So are there any, you know, resources to that regard on the website?
Right now, there aren't really how-to videos that are recent about this. Amy might be able to talk a little bit more because I think Amy may have.
Right. The RTA did do a series about how to use public transit that gives some really good points and feedback. I think right now, I know that with O&M instruction, I had talked to an O&M specialist who was saying they're not doing the one-on-one right now because of COVID. They've been told they can't do that. So I think COVID has really thrown things for a loop. But there are videos. There's a 6-series video that CTA participated in, and it's also for PACE and Metro, that really gives some really basic information, even to the point of what you might want to take with you if you're traveling for the first time, or who you should let know how you're traveling or where you're going for safety. So there is some information. I can see if maybe we could link to some of that information. That might be helpful, but there is some information out there.
Michelle, I think that would be amazing if we could link it to the CTA's website, because not everybody knows to go to the RTA's website, or like look them up on the YouTube or something. So I think that would be helpful if that would be possible. Tony, what do you think?
Certainly. I mean, if like it's not information that unfortunately I'm aware of like off the top of my head, but yeah, if there are videos out there that we can link to, absolutely, there's no trouble doing that.
We can connect, Tony. You and I can connect.
Yeah, let's talk offline, Amy.
Piggybacking on Michelle's comment, maybe you're already distributing those kinds of videos, for example, to organizations that might serve a population that's relevant. I'm thinking maybe Access Living might utilize those kinds of things, and without people being even aware of that capability to accommodate people with disabilities, it would be very useful to publicize it with organizations that might disseminate it to their members and people they serve.
That's a great point. This is Michelle. For all those who are working at different organizations, I'm sure once information is available, we can disseminate. So thank you so much, Tony, for taking the time to be here. We appreciate it, and thanks for running a great website.
Thank you. I really do appreciate it. I'm glad to be here and to be of help.
Thank you. So next up, guys, on the agenda, we have a budget update, and Michael Connolly is going to be talking about, along with Mike Fitzsimmons, who's the manager of CIP development. I don't know what that means, so I'm anxious to hear. CIP.
Oh, I'm actually going to let Mike do the presentation. He's got some material prepared to talk about, I think, the operating budget and the capital budget for 2021. And then I'll be glad to zip in at the end with answers to questions or go a little deeper. But go ahead, Mike.
Hi, like Mike mentioned, I'm the manager of the Capital Program Development Group. And I'm going to share a presentation today. I know it's not going to be helpful to all the members visually, but hopefully I can talk through it so everybody understands the information that's being conveyed. So let me try to share this at the moment. So today I'm going to provide hopefully a short presentation on the 2021 operating budget and the 5-year capital plan. The current 2021 budget is estimated to total $1.6 billion. That's for the 2021 budget year. And as I'm sure we're all aware, this budget is heavily dependent on federal stimulus money. Fortunately, as most folks know, and back in April of 2020, we received a Federal CARES Act that totaled about $817 million. In addition, just recently, CTA's received notice with other transit boards that we're going to receive additional COVID-19 emergency funding. That's good news. That second installment of funds will help us balance in part, the 2021 budget. Meanwhile, while the COVID is impacting our operating budget, we still deliver normal services everyone's aware of. And we continue to derive efficiencies from budget line items to the point since 2015, we've captured $168 million in savings. While all this is going on, we're still operating within our existing budget expense levels, to the point where actually we had a small marginal savings in our operating budget in 2020. That's quite remarkable given what's going on with the COVID pandemic. The next slide here is, I'm going to talk about the revenues and expenses on the operating side. For those who visually can see this, on the left-hand side, we have our operating revenues, and on the right-hand side, our operating expenses. They both total, of course, to $1.6 billion. As far as our operating revenues, as mentioned, a significant part of that is the budget gap is being filled by the Federal CARES Act funds. And I should point out, based off the 2021 budget development, fare and passes are only making up 15% of the budget on the revenue side. That shows you how far down the revenues are for this past year and this year going forward. When the budget was planned and developed, we anticipated about $372 million of budget balancing actions that were required in addition to the federal stimulus funds that are already on hand. Fortunately, with that second installment that we expect to receive, that will help with some of the balancing actions that are needed. That will be somewhat less than $372 million now. In addition, the state over the last couple of years has cut revenues. They've cut approximately 5% of our public transportation funds. In addition, they have a 1.5 surcharge on our sales and collected sales tax receipts. We are at risk of potentially getting more cuts depending on how the state reconciles their budget. And as far as the expenses are concerned, expenses are rather fixed, of course, and based on the service levels. And what makes up most of our expenses? It's labor. Approximately 72% of our budget details on the labor side. There are smaller expense categories such as fuel and power and materials. And our other expense category, which the predominant amount, a piece of that is our pension obligation bonds and some of our financial commitments. As I mentioned, cumulatively, since 2011, we've captured $330 million of budget efficiencies. That's helped us fill budget gaps from year to year. We continue to aggressively manage our budget. We're restricting hiring. We're seeking union concessions. We're locking in power costs at historically low market rates. And we're aligning capital uses with capital funding sources. Specifically, this means in the past, some of our capital bond debt service was being funded by the operating budget. We've been able to identify additional capital that will provide the service that those bond funds, those bond issues that were funded out of the operating budget will now be funded with capital, excuse me. As far as the 2020 operating budget update, the total operating budget in 2020 was $1.57 billion. CTA forecast is at this time through December about a $554 million budget gap. And of course, as mentioned previously, we've been able to use the federal CARES Act to replace that and fill that budget gap. We also forecast revenue to be down $565 million unfavorable to the budget. That's driven by the fare revenues lagging budget and public funding lagging budget. Meanwhile, as previously mentioned, we have a small marginal savings in our operating budget in 2020 of approximately $8 million. The 5-year capital program invests a total of $3.4 billion over the duration of the capital program. And like I'd mentioned, $3.4 million is the total size of the program. On the slide that you're looking at here, folks that can see the slide, there's 2 pie charts. There's a funding source, marks allocation, and then the bottom pie chart has the how we're investing our funds in our asset categories. As far as the largest funding source in the capital program, that's the federal program, and that consists of our 3 formula programs. There's 3 sections to that, and that traditionally we get those funds every year. In addition, another piece of our federal program is our discretionary program. And our largest piece of our discretionary program is our core capacity program, which is directly funding RPM. Our next largest source is our state bond and motor fuel tax funding programs. They're going to total approximately $981 million over 5 years. I should mention with the federal formula program and the motor fuel tax state program, we are not marking those funds in the 2025 budget plan year. This is because our TA is holding those back and showing those as a regional total at the moment until performance-based programming metrics and measures are established, whereupon they will distribute them to the service boards. So what does this mean? It means $3.4 billion program is really closer to $4 billion. We're also going to issue $626 million of CTA bonds. A large amount of that is going toward the Red Line Extension project and capital state of good repair projects. What are the type of programs that we're funding in the current capital improvement plan? Major rail line projects, which include RPM, RLE, and your new blue. We're also going to construct new power substations at Berry and Dane on the O'Hare Blue Line, and also a new tie house at Canal. We're heavily investing in bus and our rail fleet modernization. We're investing in a bus zone elimination program where we're going to do a number of bus priority treatments over 6 high priority routes. This project is going to be done in conjunction with the Chicago Department of Transportation. We're also investing in ADA accessibility improvements to a number of stations. And of course, we're servicing our capital debt for our bond issues. Next slide. Of course, everybody's familiar with the All Station Accessibility Program. The good news from the Capital Improvement Program basis or CIP basis is that we're investing, of course, the 4 red line stations are part of the initial 9 stations to be funded as part of this plan. That's the Lawrence, Argyle, Bryn Mawr, and Berwyn stations. We're also funding the Austin Green Line station renovation. On the Blue Line, California and Montrose renovations for those stations. We have an elevator replacement program, and we're rehabbing and replacing up to 20 elevators over the duration of the 5-year program. And the final station, as far as CTA funding the project, is the Racine Blue Line station. Under the Forest Park Branch Reconstruction Phase 1 project, that station will be renovated. There's also, as mentioned previously with one of the other presentations, Chicago Department of Transportation is constructing the State and Lake Elevated Station. So this means in total, the first 9 stations of the plan are now fully funded. And going back to our 3 major projects in our capital program, Your New Blue is in the 7th and probably the final year of funding for this project. We've completed work on all 14 stations. We've completed work on the identified track and structure. We've recently completed work on the East Lake and Milwaukee power substations. And as most members know, we're continuing the work on the signal modernization project from Jeff Park to O'Hare. And the final piece of the Your New Blue project will be the Harlem Station Bridge reconstruction. We recently received a state bond grant that will fund the design this year, followed by construction in 2022 and 2023. Now we have our Red Line Extension project where the total need is $2.3 billion. To date, CTS has secured $385 million. The current CIP allocates $328 million. And this is to fund preliminary engineering and design work necessary through project development phase. I'm sure a number of folks have heard that recently CTA has entered into the project development New Start program for this project. And that project development phase will continue to October 2022. And the next one, and the biggest investment to date, is the Red Purple modernization, as we all know. That's a $2.1 billion project. And the good news is the current CIP invests in the remaining need, that's $445 million. With this 5-year plan, the RPM project would have been fully funded. As we're continuing to invest in our bus and rail fleet. Specifically for the bus rolling stock, we're currently in a negotiation for a new bus order that will provide for a purchase of up to 600 standard new buses. It's expected to be a base order of 100 with options for an additional 500 buses. We continue our electric bus program where the current CIP funds a planned future order for up to 70 buses. The current funded purchase of 20 electric buses continues, and those first 6 buses are expected to be placed in service early this year, whereas the remaining 14 buses in the 3rd quarter of this year. We're overhauling 100 articulated buses this year. We're also starting in project development phase the life extending overhaul for 430 standard New Flyer buses. This work is necessary to allow for these buses to operate through 2024 and 2025, where then it is planned that these buses will be replaced. And one thing that's unique to the CTA, we have a very robust capital maintenance program. And we've continued to fund that over the last couple of years that targets work between normal overhaul cycles. And as far as the rail fleet program, rail rolling stock, we have our current order of 7,000 series cars for 400 new series of these cars. We're also this year expect to exercise the option of 156 cars this year, in addition to those 400 cars previously mentioned. We'll also be testing the 10 prototype cars. That testing will take place throughout this year, and where it is planned that revenue cars will be delivered to the CTA from fiscal year 2022 through 2025. We're overhauling over half of our rail fleet. That's the 5,000 series rail cars. Those cars will be overhauled starting in mid-year through 2025. Like the bus program, the rail program also has a very robust capital maintenance program that targets tens of millions of dollars for work between overhaul cycles. In addition, the CTA was recently awarded a contract to purchase 4 diesel locomotives. Delivery of the first locomotive is anticipated in late 2022. And that's my presentation for today. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions or address any comments.
This is Mike Connolly. The only thing I was going to add, Mike mentioned it, that in our budget for 2021, we made the assumption that we'd get additional funding. This morning, the Federal Register citation went out that lists how much funding will go to each of the urbanized areas, each of the cities under the new act that was passed. And it looks like the region here will receive $469.5 million in Northeastern Illinois, which should go, we feel like, a long way towards helping us for our 2021 needs. So it's very good news with the approval of that act.
Hey, Mike, this is Joe. I just have a quick question about it was referenced the new electric buses, first round of the new electric buses. Have you identified the routes for those yet?
Yeah, those first 20 buses are to operate on the Chicago Avenue route.
And just so that you know, Joe, as well, and Mike, we have 2 buses that we bought in 2014 that have recently come back from a midlife overhaul to add to their charging capacity. And those are going into service on the 63rd Street route with the turnaround at Midway. That will happen sometime in the second quarter of 2021 as well. So 2 of them on the 63rd Street route, east and west, and then the 6 pilot buses are intended to be operated on the Chicago Avenue route, as well as the 14 more that are coming later this year.
Okay, great. Thanks, man.
Yes, thank you, Mike. I had forgotten that myself.
All right. Any other questions from the members? All right. Thanks so much, Mike and Mike, for both the updates on the budget there. It's really important stuff because we have to keep funded to keep all the service, right, guys? So appreciate it. Next up, we have safety and plowing protocols, and Ron Graham is going to be speaking about that topic, and especially relevant now that we're in winter and snow is happening. Take it away.
Good afternoon. This is Rovan. And yes, as a follow-up to that subject, safety and plowing protocols, if customers were to encounter bus stops that needed to be shoveled out, they would contact 311, and CDOT would be notified. Of course, the bus stops have the ID. Each bus stop has an ID number, so the customer can provide that information. So in terms of specific location, or they could simply give the cross streets and location in that manner. And once that information provided to 311, CDOT would be dispatched to take care of that location in terms of clearing it from snow and debris. In terms of rail station, I'm not sure, is rail station management on? If not, I can again provide that information. If customers were to be on the platform or entering the station and identify buildup of snow and or ice that needs to be addressed, they could either notify the customer service assistant in the booth in the mezzanine area, or if they observed it on the platform and the customer service assistant was on a different level, they could contact the CTA's customer service number and provide the location, what platform they were on or what station they were in. And then that information will get disseminated to the route for immediate actions. That's relatively all that I have. And again, I'm available for follow-up questions.
This is Joe. I just wanted to interject. Obviously, to get to those bus stops, you need clear sidewalks. Basically, the city of Chicago's ordinance says that the responsibility to clear those sidewalks is to the resident in front of their home and businesses in front of their area. And you can go to chicago.gov and look under transportation and then find sidewalk snow removal, and you'll see the ordinance. If there's any issues about that, you can call 311 and report someone, like a business not shoveling, or if a resident needs some assistance to have their area shoveled, they can go through 311 as well.
And just a sort of a sidelight on that as well. Many of the aldermen actually have a local program with their business areas about clearing streets. And in some cases, they're using SSA money or money that is raised from the business community to help clear the streets. And so if you're having difficulty with a specific area or somebody that you might try to contact the alderman who's responsible for that area, because they might be able to put some attention to it and make sure that the resources get aimed that way. So it's always advisable to go through your alderman as well and see if there are resources available to help if there's a spot that's really bad.
Thanks for that, Mike.
This is Michelle again. So thank you for that update. Just a quick question. Since I use a power wheelchair and I ride the bus quite frequently, and I do notice there is a lot of snow buildup in the bus stops that I use sometimes, I call 311, I report it and everything, but what's the timeline that we can expect for that to be removed? Is because I don't want to have to keep going out there in the snow and then, not being able to get on the bus and then, for days or something like that. So I'm just curious as what can I be expecting as the turnaround time? Anyone?
Yeah. Go ahead, Will.
Well, that's a good question. I was actually going to yield, Mike. I know that probably would be dependent on the level of snow that we receive, but I'd say that in my experience, that it usually is mitigated within the 24-hour period, sometimes less than that.
Yeah, that's reasonable to expect. About 24 hours should be cleared up. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And if we have no other questions, we can move on to the next item of the agenda. Thank you so much, Rovan, for the update. Next up, we have the COVID-19 and venture service updates. And Molly Poppy is going to be talking to us about what's been going on in the pandemic area. Thanks, Molly.
Thank you. Molly Poppy, Chief Innovation Officer here at CTA. I just have a brief presentation that I'll pull up on some recent investments that we've made in our COVID response. Just give me a second. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
It takes silence as a yes. So as I've talked about in previous committee meetings or advisory meetings, I discussed a lot of the investments that we've made in response to COVID. And one of the more recent investments that we've made since the fall is we recently launched a free face mask pilot on about 200 of our buses. So right before the new year, we began installation of these plastic dispensers that are either hung on the area directly behind the operator, or there will be 2 dispensers containing free disposable face masks on those luggage carousels, sort of either sometimes they're just on one side of the bus or they're on both. But we are beginning installation of these face mask dispensers. We're going to start with 200 buses and 20. These will cover about 20 routes coming out of the Forest Glen garage, which is on the northwest side. And these dispensers are full of disposable face masks that we received as a donation. And so we thought that this was a really effective use of these face masks. And as we continue to go through the pilot, we will look to determine if we will install this at stations or on other buses. This, again, is really just a pilot program. And this really builds on all of the other work that we've talked about. You saw all the signage today. This builds on the hand sanitizer that we have at some key stations throughout the system. This also builds on the travel healthy kit distribution that we've been doing. We distributed 20,000 travel healthy kits in 2020, and we plan to distribute another 10,000 travel healthy kits in 2021. These travel healthy kits contain a free face mask, hand sanitizer, and a sort of what to know when you ride CTA during COVID. I won't go into everything else that we've done, but I did want to highlight for this group this new pilot program that we are launching, because face masks do continue to be a topic of conversation amongst our riders, and wanted to make sure that you all were aware of the investments that we were making to make face masks even more prevalent throughout our system.
Molly, can I interrupt for just 1 second? Could you explain, because I'm looking at the picture, but if people can't see, how do you access the mask for anybody that's blind or visually impaired? Is it from the bottom of this dispenser?
Yes, it is from
to get it.
Yep, it's from the bottom of the dispenser, and you pull those the same way that you access like paper towels in a bathroom. It just pulls directly from the bottom, and this will be true for the larger face mask dispensers that are seen here that are mounted directly behind the operator. And then for the ones that are side mounted on those luggage areas, if you will, on the buses, those are also similar to a paper towel. You just pull and dispense one face mask at a time.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Yep. So that's really what's new in the world of CTA's COVID response. This is not obviously the only thing that we're doing. This is really just the only thing new since the last time we spoke in October. But I'm happy to answer any questions on the response to COVID and our reopening plans, as well as any other questions that folks may have about the new Venture app that was launched last fall, or we also have the Venture card on Apple Pay that was also recently launched.
This is Michael Kaiser, and I am wondering about the extent to which wearing masks is an issue on CTA.
Yeah, so we've done an audit of face mask compliance on the system, and we've found that roughly 85% of our customers are wearing face masks on the system. Obviously we want that number to get better, and that's why we're putting out the free face masks and continue with the visual and audio announcements around wearing face masks. But we are at about 85% right now.
Do operators have any responsibility for prompting people about face masks? I know that it can be a problem to get in that kind of conversation with people.
Yeah, so we do not ask our operators to get into a confrontation with individuals around wearing face masks. We really do put the onus on all of the communication that we have on the vehicles. That's why we have 3 or 4 signs throughout the vehicles around wearing masks. You see the big signs as you get on the buses and trains around wearing a mask that you will see even before you're on the vehicle. And we also do have audio announcements playing every 10 to 15 minutes around face masks. So we do not put the operator in the situation to enforce face masks, but we are really aggressive in our messaging so that a customer can't really go too long or can't act like they didn't know that they were supposed to wear a face mask. We are pretty aggressive about that.
That makes sense.
Hi, Molly. This is Bridget Heyman speaking. Thank you so much for this presentation. It's really cool to see the new things that you're doing. My question is about accessible communication. You mentioned that there are auditory announcements as well as signage about wearing masks, but I was curious about like the travel kits that are being offered. Are those being offered in multiple formats? So for example, like Braille or large print, things like that, someone who might need accessibility for those tools. And if they are offered, where do people find them?
That is a good point. We do not have them offered in Braille. They are offered in most of the communications that's on it is in large print. But you are correct. We do not offer anything in Braille, and that's a good point that we should think about of the different sort of tactics that we can use for those postcards.
Yeah, and it might be interesting too to put something on the website in the accessibility area where we looked at before. So what accessibility things are in place as it relates to COVID protocol? So how would somebody reach that mask? For example, if you're in a wheelchair, I couldn't reach that dispenser. I know I couldn't, and there's a lot of people that couldn't. And so what are, the things in place as far as access to COVID protocol information? And then when you're out and about, how do you access it? So, is there a tactile sticker that says 6 feet apart? If I need, accessible communications to read up on it, where do I find it? And maybe just having it on the website would be helpful, but also some other tools. Just thinking that through a little bit, and there would be members of this team that could help advise you on that. So we'd be happy to do it.
Great. No, that's very helpful. Let me sync up with Amy Serpy and I can start to pull together a list of all of the responses that we've done to COVID with sort of more instructions to your point about how you can find the hand sanitizer locations, how you can grab a mask, and we can link up then with you and others from the committee to figure out what information needs to go online and all the formats that we should put those on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it falls in 2 buckets, right? What is the actual communication tactic? What tools are available as part of those tactics? And then I guess the second bucket would be around actual access. So are the new holders for the masks, for example, in an accessible place? And might there be another place where you would need to put them too? Like when you flip up the seat, for example, could there be something that's right there? There might be some other things that you could think about there that would be pretty interesting.
Hi. Sorry, I was stuck on mute there for a second. Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. I'll let me circle up with Amy and we'll get back with you.
Awesome. Thank you for your work on this.
Hi, this is Whitney again. Thank you so much for putting this together. This is very informative. I also had a few questions. Bridget brought it up, and I was just wondering if you can tell me a little bit more in depth. Does the placement of the dispensers, does that interfere with the accessible seating at all? Does that take away any accessible seating to have it placed there?
So it does not impact accessible seating. We deliberately placed it in a location. That particular seat that it is above is currently blocked off for social distancing. So we've blocked off, it's an individual seat. It is not accessible for the operator safety. So it does not impact any of the accessible seats on the bus. And then the placement of the other locations is, like I said, on those, I'm sure there's a correct term, and I'm sure someone from bus operations is going to come at me later to tell me it's not a luggage carrier, but it's the location right as you enter the bus. The dispenser's right there, and that does not impact accessible seating either.
Are you are you all also looking to include a hand sanitizer pilot in the same area so that, you know, when you get on the bus, all that's in the same place, since the pilots currently aren't at the bus stations?
Yeah, so on the hand sanitizer pilots, and we've had a lot of discussion about putting hand sanitizer on the buses. The concern about the hand sanitizer on the bus is it can leak and it can cause a lot of messes and things where somebody is not there to clean up, and there's a spilling concern that has occurred for us. And so we do continue to have those conversations around hand sanitizer, but what we have done is really focus on the travel healthy kits. We do include hand sanitizer. It's a 2-ounce bottle of hand sanitizer there. So we are trying to give customers those tools, but we do have some concerns about hand sanitizers on buses for the spillage factor.
Okay, thank you. And I have one last question. With how the masks dispense, are the masks themselves individually wrapped? So like, know how when you like in a restroom and there is a paper towel dispenser, it's easy to accidentally pull out, you know, more than what you need. And in that process, you're touching and potentially contaminating what you're not taking. So have you noticed that that's the same kind of concern or issue with how the dispenser is set up now?
Yeah, we've had some individuals raise concerns about them not being individually packaged. And with the way these dispensers work is, you know, as you grab from the bottom, you really are only grabbing the one that you're utilizing. If you do decide you want to stick your hand in and grab more, you could, continue to pull more out. But we do lock the top of those dispensers to prevent individuals from reaching their hands in to try to contaminate. So we really try to structure this in a way that's economically feasible. It's incredibly expensive to get individually packaged face masks. And so we've tried to structure this in a way to keep it as clean as possible, but also noting that it would be very laborious and very expensive to try to have individually packaged face masks.
Okay, and I'm sorry, just to piggyback, were these dispensers, were they user tested before they were installed?
So we did some user testing amongst sort of the CTA staff and looking at different locations and understanding the way traffic flows on the bus and making sure that we weren't impeding movement on the bus. But this is a pilot, so if individuals do have concerns, I think Bridget raised a concern about not being able to access the face mask. Those are the things that we want to learn from this pilot. So if we decide to move forward with the full system deployment, we can make some changes to where we put these dispensers so that they are better for users.
That's really helpful. Thank you so much for taking the time to answer my questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, Molly, this is Joe. This is just something to consider. Maybe providing bus operators and even customer service representatives, you know, at the stations with clear masks for individuals who rely on lip reading.
Yeah, I've seen those. Do you have a good sense, Joe, of where to procure those? Different good vendors that are out there. I mean, I've heard about them and I've seen them in some places, but I don't really know of a good place to try to go about looking to procure them.
Sure, I can get that information to you, Molly, because I know Commissioner Arthur was working to secure a lot of those.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Michelle, quick question before anyone else has any more. For me, I don't have like a lot of finger functions. So it would be hard for me to actually like grab anything out of a dispenser. Do some of the bus operators have a few? Like if I were, to forget my mask or something, may I be able to ask somebody to give me one, or like, what's the...
Yeah, we are having discussions with giving the bus operators potentially a box of their own on the side, both for individuals that have problem accessing the dispensers, but then also in case we run out in the middle of our route, we can have some extra masks on hand. So we are having those discussions with the operators, and I can let you know where those end up, Michelle.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? This is Michelle. All right, well, I guess not. Thanks so much, Molly, for the updates. I know everything's always changing with the pandemic, so we appreciate all the info you bring. So thank you.
Thank you.
And next up, I'm going to turn it over to Joe for subcommittee reports.
Michelle, thanks for walking us through those reports. The first subcommittee report we want to talk about has to do with funding advocacy. Adam, do you guys have anything to report on that?
I don't see him on screen.
Okay.
I'm wrong.
Okay. Or anyone on that committee have anything to report? I guess not. Well, we can come back to that group if we need to. Next, we're going to talk about safety, training, and technology. Bridget, anything to report?
Yes, this is Bridget speaking. Thank you. Very short report today. We have received some email and community interest in joining the committee. So for folks who have reached out to me, thank you for that. You will be getting a meeting invite from me soon. Just to let the rest of the committee know, we're aiming for sometime in February. So Amy, I will be in touch about that. And otherwise, there are no new updates. Thank you.
Thanks, Bridget. And it sounds like you've really done your homework on the website accessibility. So thank you for that, and maybe opening the door for that. We start working on that as a subcommittee.
Thank you.
Finally, we'll move on to wayfinding, and I know Whitney has something to present. So Whitney, take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much. The subcommittee met in December. We had a really nice turnout of around, I think it was about 8 people. And we've been meeting over the past 4 months and kind of assigning ourselves a little bit of homework, taking in the information that's been presented to us during these meetings. And so I do have a short PowerPoint that I would like to kind of go over, and it goes over our findings and a bulk of our recommendations. So I'm sorry, I need to share my screen. So give me 1 second while I set that up. Okay. Thumbs up if people can see. Okay, awesome. So I'm just going to rearrange and start the slideshow. Okay, so this is just an overview of our goal as the advisory, wayfinding advisory subcommittee. I'm just going to read it for everybody. The Chicago Transit Authority's ADA Advisory Committee created a wayfinding subcommittee to investigate new solutions and innovations that would maximize independent travel for a diverse community of people with disabilities. As the second initiative of the wayfinding subcommittee, we examined CTA's recent COVID-19 pilots, new signage, and venture app updates. Over the course of 4 months, the subcommittee members met, researched, and discussed how CTA could modify these recent changes to ensure full accessibility and usability for patrons with disabilities. So I'm really happy that this came up organically during today's meeting, because this was one of the first things that we started talking about during our wayfinding subcommittee. It was a know before you go page. So an informative page on CTA's website and Venture app geared to inform those with disabilities and other special considerations on what to expect upon arrival and where to locate key points within the stations. So example of use, we as a group talked about kind of what this would ideally look like. And so did the wayfinding subcommittee. We thought this would be a perfect website or page on the website where exact location of hand sanitizer stations that are part of CTA's new hand sanitizer pilot. All the information will be located on the webpage, as well as information about the new mask pilots for the buses. List of chemicals used during sanitation with the sanitation schedules would be very useful. In particular, those with sensory concerns who might be especially sensitive to the different chemicals and need to plan their trip around those sanitation cycles. Clear and direct visual graphics and descriptions that correspond with the station signage. Compiled informational videos, so the how-to videos that people were talking about before, that would also be embedded on this Know Before You Go page. And so I do want to point out that with the transit accessibility page, which is great, there were a few concerns that the wayfinding subcommittee had about that particular page. It was very text heavy, very dense information that made navigating a little bit complicated. There were some concerns that if those with cognitive concerns, how easy it would be to kind of suss out the key information and being able to kind of quickly go from point A to point B when going to the Know Before You Go page. So the idea was on the Know Before You Go page itself would be the kind of basic highlighted information, and then there will be optional links for the more in-depth information. So kind of kind of feeding the information in a little bit more digestible manner for users. We also, of course, talked about the signage for the hand sanitizer pilot. So I'm just going to start off with some quick quotes that our members had as they went through and looked at the signage. So 3 quick quotes. The first one is, the clear graphics and clear instructions mean less backtracking. No one wants to backtrack in public during COVID. It's hard to understand the instructions with the graphics. They don't seem to align with each other. And then the last quote was, bigger signage is needed. They're trying to include a lot of information in 2 languages on the sign, but the language itself is not simple. And so this came up already. Our suggestion was implement floor decals. And so we're happy to see that that is something that has recently been implemented along with correlating colors and graphics. So we're really excited to get more information and see how over the months that works out with the general public. We were also thinking of a QR code. So if we're doing a Know Before You Go type page, an easy way to direct people over to all the information that they need without listing everything physically is utilizing a QR code so that people can get directed over to the page a little bit easier. So once again, just kind of cutting down for people who might be already at the station and need to make those quick decisions on the spot, making it a little bit easier for them to pull up the information that they need, to find the information that they need, and to continue throughout their journey through the CTA. And then we also talked about the Venture app. the Wayfinding Subcommittee user tested the current Venture app to explore in depth what, if any, issues occurred while browsing/navigating, with the parameter of accessing the app as each subcommittee member typically would, and with whatever needed assistive device. We then assembled and discussed all the concerns. And so this was the bulk of our last discussion in December. So just a few quick quotes again that stood out during our last meeting and critique. The first one was that it wasn't very user-friendly. The app is not structured for those with cognitive concerns. On certain pages, wording is complicated and not direct. So some of the recommendations that we have that we suggest is training support and or online assistance for visitors who might be having difficulty with the app or website. Just kind of giving an option for someone who wants to use it, who wants to get familiar with it. Providing any additional option would be greatly, I think, helpful. For those who use screen readers, optional plain text instructions of what's on the page. One of the issues that came up during our last meeting is that when you're doing the screen reader, as some of you may know who use screen readers, it reads everything on the page. Sometimes, most of the times, it gives too much information, especially when you're in a hurry, you need key information. So another way to kind of pare that down is plain text. Optional page zoom, so word magnification that's built in would also be greatly helpful. As mentioned, adjust low contrast and small print. Clear and direct wording with correlated graphics, which is also going to be helpful for some of our voice-over screen readers. And then option to see the entire train line while scheduling rides. So the idea here is that there's an equal amount of graphics to what your command is as you're going from step A to step B with scheduling the rides. So our kind of final questions that we wanted to ask the CTA is first, should the Wayfinding Subcommittee wait to make additional recommendations until after the CTA knows what money might be available post-COVID? Because we have been meeting and we've been meeting and talking about the pilots quite a bit, but we want to make sure that we stay as practical and realistic as possible with our suggestions. One of the things we've been talking about in great depth are utilizing beacons within the stations, which is a technological component that the CTA might not financially be ready for. So we are wondering about that. We also, as mentioned earlier, we want to know if the CTA is open to the idea of user testing. We have several members who are very eager to help user test the Venture app, as well as a Know Before You Go webpage, as well as the pilots. So we kind of just want to make sure moving forward that we are keeping within our realm of possibilities as a subcommittee, while also being as helpful and informative as we can with working with CTA with our recommendations. So in a nutshell, once again, this is our goal. The ADA Advisory Committee was established by the authority of Chicago Transit Board. The committee serves in an advisory capacity that provides CTA with recommendations on compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, facilitates dialogue between CTA and the disability community, and supports increased use of CTA services by people with disabilities. If anyone after this wants a copy of the presentation or wants to join our Wayfinding Subcommittee, please feel free to email me at adatransitpublic@gmail.com. And that is the end of my presentation. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Any questions for Whitney? If not, thank you so much, Whitney. It looks like a lot of work put into putting that together, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Next, we'll move on to the facilitators report, and I'll turn it over to Amy Serpy, the manager of ADA compliance programs.
Whitney, do you want to stop sharing your screen?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
That's okay. No biggie. Okay.
Hey, Amy.
There you go. Hi. Okay, so a few things. As you know, we're not really doing any of the events or the familiarization trainings or a lot of the things that we've done in the past. Everything is still on hold due to COVID, and we're not quite sure. I mean, obviously it's really exciting with the vaccine that's come out, but again, I don't think that's going to be, you know, magic in terms of a timeline. So we're still a little up in the air and how things are progressing. I will say, just so you know, that Tony Capoletta and I actually have made arrangements in January to go out within the system. We're going out for a variety of reasons, but to different rail stations. And I will be checking at that point regarding the signage, regarding placements, regarding whatever. So if there are things that come up at that time, we will definitely, you know, alert the proper people if we see issues or whatever. So I wanted, though, the committee to know that obviously I haven't been out a lot. I've been doing a lot of telework, but I will be doing that and we'll be together. So we'll be checking out a lot of the communication stuff. And sort of speaking of communication, just so a lot of you know, I know not everybody has been around for years and years, with the whole big, and there is a really, really detailed Ventra machine description on our website. If you put it in the search box, you would come up with this whole big long thing. And that was a specific request from the committee. Can we develop an actual physical description of the machine? Like how far from the bottom is this button, or how do we find this part of the machine? And actually I worked, this was in like 2014. So it's been a while, with one of our interns at the time who was just excellent. And that's how that whole big, long, detailed description came about on the website. So it's very wordy. There's a lot of information, but it was to provide a very physical description of the equipment, like very specific. So a couple things, as you know, just a reminder of those 2021 dates for the next 3 meetings are April, July, and October. They're all on the 12th. So that's kind of an easy breezy way to remember. Obviously, we send out notices and stuff beforehand, but just to sort of update you on that. If anybody needs any kind of assistance, you're trying to sign up for alerts, you're not having success or whatever, please call me. I'm happy to go through it with you online. We can kind of talk through the process. I can help you get signed up if that's what you need. I've done that before with other people who have contacted me. So I have absolutely no problem in doing that. I am going to be sending out those annual statements of financial interest forms. And hopefully we can get those back in a really timely manner. They're not very complicated. It's so that CTA knows. As a committee member, you have certain obligations, as you know, to not, in terms of financial responsibilities. Are you working, in other words, for another organization where you're a director and maybe they have something going on with CTA and they're paying you all this money, and that's a conflict of interest kind of thing. So you have to report certain things. And mostly it's pretty easy for people to do these, but sometimes it's been a little difficult for me to get them back. So when I send them out, I do send them out in alternative formats. There's the standard form you could do online. I do large print. I could do it over the phone with you if that's something that somebody's still having difficulty with. So you will be getting those probably within the month. If you could return them by our April meeting, that would be absolutely excellent, because they should be turned in to our board office before May. And then also just, you all know that there is the access@transitchicago.com mailing list. You all get announcements from me from time to time as I find out things. Obviously, not every single thing that happens on the system can be reported because stuff changes on a dime. There are changes every day. But when I find out about something like the big things, if I know an elevator is going to be out for a month or whatever, I really do try and report those things as soon as I find out about them. If you want to be on the mailing list or if you don't want to be on the mailing list, let me know if you're getting like information that you don't want. I try and put specifics in the subject line so that if it's something that you absolutely don't need to know about, you can just delete it right off the bat. If you know of anybody else who wants or needs the information, I'm happy to add to that list. That's pretty much all I have at this time. We don't know yet what's going to happen with our April meeting. Will it be virtual? Will it be, in person? A bit of suspense, I guess, for those of you that like suspense. So, at this time we don't know, but as soon as I know, you'll know. And that's about it. And if anybody has any questions or comments, happy to address.
Hey, Amy, this is Joe. Has a date been determined for regarding our quarterly meetings on when we'll take the ethics training?
Generally, we do that in April. It's like the last hour of the April meeting. I need to check that out with our law department because that comes through the law department to see how we need to schedule that. I don't even know that everybody has to go through it, but because of the fact that it's required, it's actually, I think, and you guys tell me if you agree, not a bad reminder to just do it every year. It's required every couple of years, but I honestly think that just to remind people of what the rules are, it's an hour, so it's not a ton of time, and it's just easier to tack it on at the end of a meeting, so we're not asking people to come to yet another thing or more time away from whatever your job or responsibilities are. So if people have no objections, we can schedule that for the end of our April meeting, and when I say the end, it would be like from 3 to 4. And we could do kind of what we did last time, where you go out of, well, no, actually, we could do it. If we're doing a Zoom call, we can actually just all stay on and have the law department come at the end. Because when we did it before, we didn't do the YouTube component. We just did everybody on Zoom, which was a lot more complicated. But because of the way that we're doing it and only committee is on Zoom, we can just go right into that. So I can set that up for our April 12th meeting if there are no objections.
This is Michael Kaiser. I have a question. Is there any concern about potential disruption of public transportation between now through the inauguration? And if so, are there any plans being made about that? It just seems like maybe it won't have an impact at all, particularly in Illinois or Chicago, but it could.
Mike Conley, do you want to talk about maybe what happens when there are disruptions on this? I think our chief is able to address that a little more.
No, it's a good question, Michael. And actually, Rovan Graham, who is our general manager of transportation safety, transit safety, is still on the line. But I'll just preface it by saying that we work very closely with the city and their Office of Emergency Management. We have constant dialogue with them on a almost daily basis, and mostly on a daily basis, looking at what's going on the street, looking at potential requests for street closures or activities or disruptions or gatherings of any kind. And then we try to anticipate what's going to happen with that. Right now, frankly, we don't anticipate anything major for the election. But that's right now, and things do change day to day. We will certainly keep an eye on it. I would expect that we would see probably a larger impact in Springfield, partly because that's where the whatever you want to call them, the insurrectionists, if you will, have targeted the state capitals and the federal capital. I know WMATA is concerned right now, but I don't think for us it's a big concern. So I'll just say that. Ro, you may have more information about that, or you want to talk about it.
Mike, just to piggyback on that, in terms of what we're seeing and what we're doing, in addition to that, our Vice President of Security, Kevin Ryan, works with Department of Homeland Security, OEMC, Chicago Police Department, and the other agencies in the surrounding suburbs. And they do the updates and prepare. So we have been preparing with the other agencies and with their internal city groups, as well as the federal agencies, in case that there is any uproars or unreadiness leading up to the inauguration.
Thank you.
We provide those daily updates to the front office as well as to the other respective users group internally. So we are aware of all contingency plans and actions if we have to adjust our service levels or modify our routing.
Thank you. It sounds like you're well aware and hopefully better prepared than people were last Wednesday.
Any more questions for Amy?
I just had a quick comment. This is Bridget speaking. This is about future meetings and whether they're in person or whether they're on Zoom. You know, Zoom is a nice accessibility feature. And so I wonder if the committee might entertain offering a Zoom option in addition to in-person meetings. When we come back to being able to have in-person meetings, I think it's an accessible way for people to be able to watch our meetings as well, broadcasting it on YouTube for people who might not be able to come in person. So I wanted to put that forward. Now that we've kind of gotten used to this, we might want to consider continuing it as an accessibility feature.
That's a great suggestion. I think that's something that we kind of need to discuss internally and see how CTA wants to move forward. But definitely take that under advisement unless people have an objection to that. How do people on the committee feel about that?
This is Joe. I really like that idea.
Yeah, I like the idea too. This is Michael Kaiser. I would hope that people wouldn't would be attending in person when they could, but I think it's a good idea.
This is Robin. I think you're going to see huge changes overall from now on. It's going to be less. I think entities are going to have a lesser argument not to make things available virtual because it's been proven that it can be done and it can be done in a cost-effective manner that engages more people in participation.
This is Howard. I agree as well. I think this is going to be part of our new normal.
This is Mary Abramson. I like the idea of it being much easier than meeting in person, but you know, there's a lot of security issues around Zoom, so we just have to be careful that people aren't in the meeting room that aren't authorized to be there. And because if we're going to have ethics training, then that must mean that there's certain rules and guidelines and that need to be followed, as well as making sure that the meeting is secure and is attended by only the people that are supposed to attend.
Yeah, Mariah, who is probably here somewhere on the screen, I can't see her. Mariah, oh, there she is, I see you waving. Mariah from our learning and support staff has been absolutely fabulous, and we connect all the time. And she actually has a list of who the members are and who the interpreters are and who the transcriber is. So she has a list of people that, you know, should be let in. And that's why we decided to run these meetings like they do the board meetings, where if you don't need to be on Zoom, if you're the public or whatever, you can listen and hear everything that goes on, but it's a lot easier to keep it amongst the people that need to be, you know, on the actual Zoom link. So we thank you for that reminder, Mary. And I continue to, you know, the learning and support staff continues to be very involved when we do these setups, and they're really great. So
thank you.
That's a good thing. Thank you, Mariah.
This is, if I can add one little thing other than Amy, she sings her praises too much. Really, she makes it really easy for us to help out with this. But For everybody that is in the Zoom meeting, one thing that helps with the security is to make sure that your contact information is always up to date. So if you're going to call in for audio, just do your best to make sure that that phone number is a phone number that we have. So that if you do call in from a different number than usual, then we see, okay, we know who that is, we can let you in. And that just helps with the security a little bit. So that's the one note that I've got. But other than that, I'm just happy to help however learning and support can.
That's great, and thank you. And I have sent out, you all should have a contact list for everybody's that's on the committee, names, affiliate, addresses, email addresses, phone numbers. If you move, if you change your phone number, if you want a different phone number used, then please, let me know so we can update that list and I can resend it out to everybody. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Any more comments on this?
I have a question that is separate from this.
Go ahead.
So I was just wondering, for the subcommittees that are trying to get a little bit more involved with like our suggestions and everything else, who would be the correct point person to then go to about, I guess the depth of what we've been researching and how we can actually kind of be a bigger role?
I'll be taking your suggestions and things, sitting down with Mike Conley and also Molly, who is our chief for innovations, etc. So it's really those are the people that we would start those discussions with to see how we could move things forward. I think right now, Whitney, with COVID's just really sort of screwed everybody up in so many ways. But I will share, with your PowerPoint and with some of the other suggestions that came up, which were really good suggestions, like with the website, et cetera. There is a way that we can work through some things. And again, if the Safety and Training Committee is meeting, we can set that up with people from our learning and support team just to listen in and to see what suggestions and things are made. With fundraising, we can get our community and legislation department involved in those discussions. So really, if people let me know when you want to meet, if you can give me some notice. We've done with the wayfinding committee, CTA has been able to assist with setting up Zoom calls. So if you want to do a Zoom meeting, we've been able to do that on behalf of those committees. I do not need to be involved with those. I can be, so it's really whatever you guys want. Or we do even have a conference call line that if you're using it for committee business, we can share. So there are a lot of different ways. And I think I'll be sitting down after this meeting with Mike and Molly. And we'll go through some things and then we can get back to the committee if that helps.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you.
Any more questions for Amy? Anyone?
Actually, this is Bridget speaking, and it's a follow-up question to Whitney's, which I thought was great because you outlined some action items, some concrete action items of what you'd like to see in your presentation. And so, Amy, after you have that meeting, it would just be great to have an update on where those action items are, not just for the wayfinding subcommittee, but for the entire committee to hear that, because maybe we could offer support whether we serve on that subcommittee or not. And that happening in between our meeting times, I think would make these times when we're able to get together and talk as an entire committee just that much more effective. So Whitney and your team, thank you for the action items, because it's really good to see you've done a great deal of work and it'd be great to follow up on those.
Okay, anything else, guys? If not, Amy, thank you very much for your presentation. Next, we'll move on to old business. Is there any old business to discuss? If not, any new business to discuss? Anything to bring up? If not, I'll turn it back over to Michelle for adjournment.
All right, so we're almost done, guys. This is Michelle. Before we do the motion, just want to let everyone know, remind that we have the next meeting is Monday, April 12th, and we don't know yet if it's going to be virtual, but hopefully we'll still be able to, meet at some point together. And so I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Anyone?
Michael Kaiser, I move that we adjourn.
Thank you. Anyone second?
I'll second that. This is Mary.
Okay, Mary seconds. And if we're just going to do a vote, and everyone in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And any abstentions? All right, so that is 4:11 p.m. and we are ending the meeting. Thanks, guys.
Thanks all.